Hey guys, so I'm gonna admit this episode, although we talked about you know legacy projects, I got a little bit political. Not not too much, but you know, so something needed to be said, and I think tried not to go too far, but I'll admit I got I got it there, and I just need to say so. If you want to watch the episode, you're more than welcome to. I would love if you watched the episode. I mean, I'm gonna be honest. But I just I gotta say, I got a little bit political when it comes to part of this discussion, and it has to do with AI and being used for legislation. So I I can hope that you can understand and still enjoy the video. I, yeah. So, well, if you're already this far and you are watching the episode after this, thank you. So, enjoy the episode. So, this is it's a very topical thing, and I already mentioned it. Is we just had a what I would call a legacy project just come out in theaters, bomb in the box office. It's currently bombing in the box office as we speak. Tron Ares, and it kind of begs the question. Even though there are good sequels for some of these movies, what is really the point of having these movies that come out like some examples I wrote down were Tron Ares or Legacy, Blade Runner 2045, Ghostbusters, and I just remembered Bill and Ted Face the Music. You have these movies that they made sequels of 20, 30 years after the last movie came out, and kind of begs the question about their cultural relevance or I kind of get it, but it's why what's the point? I mean,
Because
yeah.
nostalgia is lucrative, very, very lucrative.
I mean, really, yeah.
And it's almost like and it goes hand in hand with that. It's almost like they're capitalizing on the almost need for parents
Mhm.
to take their kids to experience what they did when they were their age. And, but I feel like even that is falling out of favor, as you mentioned with Tron Ares. It's already people are getting sick and tired of this sort of thing, and even people are reacting like, "Wait, this thing is even a thing."
Yeah, the other thing was obviously there's the issue with the lead actor Jared Leto. There's a whole litany of issues with him, but there's also just the fact that you have these projects, you have these movies that are like for franchises that are 30, 40 years old that have not been continuing. Most of the time that they're just brought back because the people that are in charge of the studio or people that are in the production team, grew up with the thing. It kind of begs the question, at what point, and somebody even prosed this in a tweet, I believe, is we should just let it out to pasture, so to speak. I mean, that's kind of what they're planning on with Tron. I think really the wording of the tweet was they're not going to do movies of Tron anymore. They're probably going to do other types of media, but it's at what point are these types of movies, or is this franchise irrelevant to the modern pop culture zeitgeist?
And it's also kind of like when, if a movie is if there's a certain age to a movie where it's so old that they want to do a sequel
Hmm.
almost, people aren't either going to be interested or they aren't even going to remember the first one.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, some of these
Mhm.
movies are. sequels to movies that came out 30, 40 years ago. You,
Yeah.
you can't really tell me unless like you have like somebody who's hyper focused on Tron or like Masters of the Universe.
Hmm.
How you can you really tell me that like I love Masters of the Universe, don't get me wrong. Like I love the
Hmm.
concept, I love the designs, all that kind of stuff. And obviously that's not just the main two examples, but it's like what at what point, you know, some of these like franchises haven't been culturally relevant in the past like 2 decades or 3 decades, you
Hmm.
know, nobody's going to want to go see it. And that's why some of these movies bomb in the box office. You can't make a Flintstones cartoon and expect it to, you know, get like high ratings because you're basically retreading or remaking something that was made like explicitly for the 60s.
Yeah.
And yeah, nobody, everybody like under the age of 30 now, not, I'm just assuming, you know, I'm not, don't directly quote
Hmm.
me. You know, you get a lot of people probably, I would say, I would even have to say under the age of 25. There's some people probably over the age of 25 or younger that probably do know Flintstones. But like you go ask anybody under the age of 20, they probably just recognize them from the like the vitamins or the cereal boxes. You
Yeah.
know, that they don't have the reference to like the cartoon that was a reference to the honeymooners, that was this and that, all the other like auxiliary TV shows and such that came out in like the past like 30, 40 years. It's just it's not culturally relevant anymore.
Yeah.
And it's I just it really, like I said, begs the question, what point do we just kind of say, well, this is something that was in the past and we kind of have to let it go?
And even to play like devil's advocate, if you will,
Yeah.
even if someone wants to reboot an old property, actually like make it stand on its own so people don't necessarily need to know the original like property or yeah. It's like just
Hmm.
give it a reason to exist, essentially. It's like make it its own thing to justify its existence instead of retreading the original.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think the perfect example of that, what you just said, Jenna, the perfect example of that is between the Addams Family versus the Addams Family films. Because
Hmm.
you have the really, really old show from the 60s, and then you have the Addams Family movies that come out years later,
Yeah, and
but
those
they
are cult.
still stand as separate things.
Yeah, those are those movies are cult classics. A lot of
Yeah.
people love Raul Julia's interpretation of Gomez Adams. Like he is like outside of, I think it's James Aston. He's Sean Aston's dad, which is funny enough.
Mhm.
Uh, you know, it's like they're both very good interpretations of like these characters. And I think it's just what Jenna said earlier is kind of some of the reason why some of these properties they don't really work like for so long. Like the longevity is a lot of people are either like retreading those same steps or like obviously nostalgia baiting. And you're just kind of
Yeah.
being like it's the you know it's the frickin' like jingling keys like whole situations. Like I don't need
Or
jingling
making
keys.
or
What?
making or making sequels to like years old movies that nobody even remembers what even happened in the original.
Yeah, it's like
Yeah.
they're doing it right now, like Spaceballs 2, The Quest for More Money. I mean, they're probably not calling it that, but uh,
That would be a good title, though.
they
Quest
have
for
to
more
like
money.
it was a throwaway line in that movie. The movie is like 40 plus years old now. Like they got to do it. Somebody's got to be like, "Hey, you know, Mel, you made the throwaway line of calling the movie The Quest for More Money. Why don't we call it that?" Like, you know, they got to do
That would
that.
be hilarious,
Like,
though.
if you're gonna make a sequel to a
Hmm.
movie 30, 40 years after, to shit on the like Star Wars sequels and all the
Like,
other
do
space
it.
stuff. Do it in the same vein in joke. Yeah, do it in the same vein and joke of the frickin' in original movie. Like,
Yeah,
yeah,
it's like actually be a legitimate criticism of the thing, of actually be a legitimate criticism of reboots and sequels and all the things that you're saying, while at the same time understanding what made Spaceballs good in the first place.
exactly. And this kind of brings up another question because even though we've been talking about this for like 10 minutes, it's there's sometimes we have series that just have sequels upon sequels upon sequels, like Alien is a good one. Apparently, they're doing like the 10th Alien sequel, prequel,
Whatever it
whatever.
is.
Yeah.
They've been doing the same thing, but they've been doing like 14, 15 Halloween sequels. Friday the 13th. Um, I was gonna say Nightmare on Elm Street, but I think they stopped after Freddy Lives. I can't remember. Um, it's like some of those. I think it kind of goes like the same idea with Fast and the Furious too. It's like, at what point do you just let the franchise die because you've just been making sequels? Like, I mean, it's even pointing it for like some superhero movies. It's like, at what point do you let the franchises die because your sequels have been becoming either more nonsensical or more mediocre because you're just kind of making shit up on the fly? I mean, what?
Yeah.
They're going to space in Fast 10? Like, it's
And I find that actually it reminded me when you were mentioning all those like horror franchises. It's actually really interesting because sure there are, as you mentioned, there are sequels and remakes of horror franchises, but it's interesting because the horror genre, and I actually heard about this from that one Justine Bateman interview about the AI object in the form of a actor that
Yeah, that's
yeah.
apparently the horror genre is seems to be actually doing somewhat better in terms of creating original properties, which is really interesting because everything else is like it feels like Hollywood is desperately grasping at straws so they don't have to create original content.
Yeah, well, I think
yeah.
you really, especially nowadays, you could really make stories of like uncanny valley type creatures, like in consideration of like all this AI
Yeah.
becoming, or like, I don't want to say people being dumbed down and like being numbed
Anything can
to
be
all this kind of stuff.
scary.
I
Like
think,
anything can be scary. Horror is lucrative after
yeah,
all. It's
I think another thing that could be a good point is like you could even, you have stories from like 30, 40 years ago of like I want to say the politics, but like, oh, the presidents are doing this thing or like the government's doing this thing and we have to, they're actually being really crappy to their people. It's like, we're I don't want I'm trying not to really get too deep into it, but like we're kind of living in a kind of the mirrored situation to stuff we've read about or seen on TV or movies like 30 plus years ago. I think it's good to kind of bring back some of those types of stories because, it needs to be talked about. Somebody made a good point. It needs to be shit on, is
Yeah.
what it
and
needs
even
to be done.
and but even then, just to bring a counter argument to that, it's like if the original property itself from like 30 years ago or so has the exact same message as the exact same thing as to what's happening in that time is the same thing that's happening now. It's like why not re-release that movie
That is a good
or
point.
whatever because it's still relevant. What they're saying, what they were saying then is still relevant
Yeah.
now.
Because the the only thing that you would really need to change is just like any current sensibility.
Yeah,
Of
of course,
course,
yeah.
like something from like the 70s, 80s, 90s or whatever, there was some different sensibilities. Of course, you could just like release like some of these movies, just really re-release them back in theaters, have it be a talking point only. But you know,
The movie that I think that really should come back to theaters, if we really want to start a talking point, are the Terminator movies.
oh yeah,
Oh
I
yeah.
honestly,
Because, yeah,
it's it's timely. It's the AI. We're worried
yeah,
about AI taking over.
mm-hmm,
Or you know, obviously, like great special effects. It still really shows even after 30, 40 years after the movies came out. Like there's still practical effects are like always really good
Yeah,
from.
and the stop motion on that Terminator near the end is like, beautiful.
And obviously, there's some stuff. Obviously, it's more expensive to use certain um certain effects nowadays.
Yeah.
It's funny you mentioned Terminator, John, because that's another franchise that like had like seven different sequels, reboots, all this kind of stuff. What was it? Dark Fate was the
I
last
don't
one.
know.
I
I don't
think
know.
I think it was Dark Fate. It was one where they made John Connor into a Terminator because he got infected by like nanites or something. And everybody did not like it, but they liked the sequence where the Terminator killed John Connor and Sarah Connor in the on the beach or whatever. It's like see that kind of still kind of goes back to begging the question of like what at what point do we kind of let these franchises just kind of be in their own bubble in the past and not have to try to like put a fresh coat of paint on them, so to speak.
I feel like there's going to be a day where I feel like James Cameron is just going to say, "Told you so." I don't want to say it, but I
I
told you
mean, I mean, look at
so.
George Lucas. Look at
Yeah,
look at George Lucas. He just did those interviews with James Cameron about, ironically enough with Star Wars, but Star Wars has like projects always going
yeah,
on, and there's also always good writers, a good amount of good writers on it. I'm not gonna say all it's always like banger after banger, but it's even George Lucas is calling out a lot of people who compare you know the resistance for one side to the other, when even like George Lucas is saying is like, well, the resistance is actually Viet Cong and the Empire is us, as ostensively. And it is funny to think that a lot of people tend to miss that in like any type of modern retelling or fan interpretations. And it is kind of
yeah.
funny to kind of see a lot of people say that, oh, oh, George Lucas would be this, George Lucas would be that. It's like, this is the guy that made a movie about what is basically the Viet Cong fighting against the United States military, but they made it about space wizards fighting against space Nazis. I mean, it's kind of. I mean, we this is what it's that's what Star Wars is. I
Yeah.
wouldn't even say
But
space wizards like for the one side, but you know
but
what I
even
mean.
then, because Star Wars is not like the actual movie itself is not like, calling out a specific thing or whatever, it still remains timeless.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, of course, like effects wise, it's
Hmm.
aged a bit, but Lucasfilm was always kind of at the top, tippy top when it came to like after A New Hope. It's you know the way the story was told, and I think it's another thing is like some of these stories don't necessarily date themselves, but if they do, it doesn't feel like they're trying to super date themselves, if that makes sense. Like
Yeah,
it can
I
it can be a story that can take place in the modern day, but sometimes there's stories that really only feel like they take place in like the 80s or the 90s. Somebody whips out a smartphone. I was like, oh, this is like 2010s or whatever, 2020s. It's like,
Yeah.
But you
Oh,
also got to realize that with some of the films, not just using the like when they were creating movies back in the day, they were
uh
using practical effects at the
yeah,
time, which and it's not just practical effects, it's also practical a lot of other things, practical sets, practical costuming, practical
yeah,
stuff where they're trying to make it feel like you can feel like you are
you're
stepping
there.
into this world. um and it's not only that, but also the actors who played those roles back in the day. And okay, I know that like Harry Potter is not really liked, right? But
Yeah, I'll keep
I will
going.
say my favorite casting story out of that whole franchise is Ivana Lynch's Luna Lovegood. Because how in the world are you a pen pal to the author of a book series and you end up as that character in that role in a franchise? I mean, that's
I
pretty incredible,
I would
just
like to
as its
think
own.
I would like to think, and this is like just like a little thing
Mhm.
into it, is
Yeah.
that I'm pretty sure we can remove a lot of people can remove themselves from Joanne and her books from the
Mhm.
movies because obviously the actors have. Even though the actors have been it's been very lucrative for them
Mhm.
to be in the movies, and obviously we have a whole like theme park based
Mhm.
off of the movies because it if those movies didn't take off, it'd probably be like a whole Narnia situation where the best
Yeah.
interpretations were like a freaking like movie from like the 60s. I mean, not the 60s, but like a TV movie. It'd
Yeah.
probably be as like Doctor Who levels of like it's
Yeah.
not like mainstream, but it's like a cult
Mhm.
favorite thing over there. Oh yeah, but the author's a kind of a a twat or whatever. It's yeah. Yeah, no,
Yeah.
it I would really like to think that like people there is a little bit of removal from the author versus the movies because I feel like the movies that's another thing the movies don't really date themselves either. I didn't really realize they took place in like the 80s or whatever
Or the
until like
90s. Yeah.
or the 90s until somebody mentioned it. I
Yeah.
had no clue that it took place like decades prior, but
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think no, it's a lot of you mentioned practical sets. And it is really funny to think like a lot of these movies nowadays, all the budget goes into the actors, and they really don't have like too much when it comes to the practical sets. Well, probably doesn't help also when they're trying to do these like ideas for like some of these settings. It takes place in like super fantasy, like in space, and that just it physically does not exist outside
Mhm.
of like a comic book media or a print media. So that they have to make like these super fantastical CGI environments.
Yeah.
And here's a really good example of why it's a huge issue. If you guys don't remember, like about when the Hobbit movies came out, I think we talked about this
Oh
before.
yeah.
Ian
Hmm.
McKellen, when he did Lord of the Rings, everybody was there. There was just a lot of like camera trickery. But, when they were doing the Hobbit movies, and actually think you mentioned it, John, is that like when they were doing the Hobbit movies, it was all in like CG green screens, and Ian's just like sitting there alone, like doing
Yeah.
all these takes. It's like
And he's getting upset. He's
he's
really getting upset because he's like, I have to be with a person. I can't do this alone.
yeah, it's just like it really kind of shows like what is kind of happening with cinema when it comes to, even like doing legacy franchises or all that kind of stuff, or
yeah.
even just in general, we've kind of lost like this visual art of
And
like
That's what we've lost.
we've lost the
and
visual
Exactly.
art of like being there.
Hmm.
Yeah.
besides it
And
being cheap movies.
unfortunately, where we're reaching a point where executives are now putting all of their efforts to make generative AI technology to not only puppeteer dead people, just to remake dead franchises. I don't care if their families or friends consented to it. It's unethical and disgusting, and I don't want to see it. But now it's getting so far that they're executives are willing to sign on an AI generated thing that looks like a person, that looks like an actor, but it's not really. It's just AI generated slop to act in movies. And I'm just looking at that and I'm like, how many faces did that AI model stole in order to make that?
Yeah, and you mentioned AI, and I think that brings another point that I had into light is, some of these projects, at what point are some of these projects actually passion projects? At what point are they just there for a quick buck? Because, and I mentioned to you guys behind the scenes, obviously with Power Rangers, they Hasbro licensed off, the rights to it to a YouTube channel called Ninja Kids, and they had all these physical suits, they had all the sets, they had the trying to think of the right word, or the camera work and everything. But the trailer just came out. The camera work is horrendous, and
Yeah.
any of the special effects are AI.
Oh my
It,
goodness.
and it's just
That is
that's
tragedy.
it's so
Yeah.
frustrating being in that fandom, being in that space, to have your franchise and you've learned all this stuff about like the people behind the scenes, the actors kind of being crappy people, all this stuff. It's it's rough being a fan of this franchise when it kind of gets like, yes, I understand. It's good to try to use this evolving technology,
But
but
this is not the same kind of technology as something like Photoshop or any of the other things that actual artists and filmmakers are
like
actually using.
yeah,
AI is not the same thing as all any other. It's not AI. Sorry, it's
doesn't have
AI.
soul.
Well, yeah, and AI is not the same thing as the technology of like Photoshop and the camera work and all that stuff that filmmakers and artists are already using. It's not the same thing.
There was something that the daughter of Robin Williams was getting
Oh
all of
yeah.
these AI videos, and she was literally saying, like, stop sending me these videos. This is going too far.
The
I'm surprised she hasn't gone to someone about this, maybe to the police, maybe to somebody, and just say,
I
maybe if we have to literally go to like the police about this, um, maybe it's a time to stop.
I wouldn't. Yeah, I was gonna say because they just did something which I actually kind of really appreciate that they're doing
Hmm.
is they have basically said you cannot use the likeness of political figures or, well, obviously it's bad when you can't use the likeness. It's a kind of a slippery slope with that, but they were saying don't stop using the likeness of Martin Luther King in
Hmm.
your AI generated crap. And I think it was prompted by his daughter to
Hmm.
basically say, hey, because she was agreeing with Zelda Williams, which
Hmm.
is the person, and obviously, funny
Hmm.
fact, if you don't know, she is named after the princess, I believe.
Hmm.
Um, which is funny. It really does show. It's like, at what point, like, I really don't want to get political, like super political, but it's like when you have the people in charge are using this type of stuff to falsify information and all this kind of stuff, the legal ramifications of this kind of crap, we need to have some type of like guidelines.
Or just
because
completely. Oh,
no,
you're gonna
go ahead.
continue? Oh, I was just gonna say, or just completely get rid of generative AI because there's literally no freaking hope for this thing.
I
All it does is bring bad luck.
I hate to say it, but I feel like even it's gonna kind of probably gonna be going the way of like frickin' obviously this seems like the bubble is actually start might burst soon, but it's probably gonna go the way of NFTs where it's like in the background if anything.
Yeah.
But like yeah, no, it just we need to stop because when you have like officials, government officials using AI to write litigation, to write uh, reviews, like medical reviews of stuff that needs the human element. Sorry, I got into the thing. It needs to be monitored. It needs to not be this far. We don't need to be dependent on this crap this much.
And
I'm sorry I got into that.
I
There's
mean, they're
probably people
grifters
that are
anyway.
watching that get mad at anyway. Yeah, they are.
I mean, they're
Um,
grifters anyway, so let's not pay attention to them. But
yeah,
I should mention that look, and going back to the filmmaking aspect
yeah.
of what's happening now is that nothing new will ever come out of using generative AI because
No.
all they are is just regurgitating old and especially stolen works. It's like we will not advance as storytellers if all we're doing is just regurgitating regurgitating stuff that has already come before.
Yeah, when you're shitting at the same old crap, like day in, day out, it doesn't have a substance. It doesn't have a soul. I
And also,
try to find like 3D models to print on my 3D printer, and all I see are these pretty much the same looking crap AI generated 3D models, which, when you actually put them into the 3D software, don't work. And these
mm,
people are trying to make money off of it. And it goes into the trying to bank off of old properties because obviously you go onto these websites. It's an older property. It's like it's like AI generated He-Man Labubu or something like that. Because obviously they just like type the little prompts in or whatever. It's gross.
yeah.
It's like it is grifting. It's grifting, and you know we kind of went off subject, but it just really kind of goes to show is our dependence on like it is really funny to think that the South Park episode Member Berries is
Mhm.
very not poignant, but kind of funny to think that, we've gotten to the point where the member berries are very, I can't think of the word. I don't know why I can think of the word, but you get what I'm trying to say. Say we're so like blinded by nostalgia and all this kind of stuff that we can't really move forward. And it doesn't just mean like blinded by cinematic nostalgia. There's other types of nostalgia, like we want things to be like they were before.
Yeah, it's like it's this sort of escapism that I mean, sure, there are sure escapism does have its place, but I think we are getting to a point where it's like this is just too much. There's
Yeah.
too much escapism, and
And
we're
yeah.
getting to a point, and I even stated this multiple times on here that actually I've stated this before that time only marches forward. We can't always go back because well we've changed as people and
Yeah.
Yeah.
it's not always beneficial to just keep going back.
And these franchises on and reboots of certain franchises, you just can't capture lightning in a bottle twice. You
Yeah.
just can't.
Sometimes you'll see like some of these franchises and reboots that, like I said a little bit earlier,
Mhm.
just feel like it's jingling keys because, like, hey, you remember this actor used to play this character, but now we're bringing him back as an older, grizzled version of this actor, of this character, or some sort of, something new, but also old because we want them to look badass now that they're like 60 years older or whatever.
Yeah,
It's like,
Yeah.
I love some of these franchises, but it really does kind of go to show that like, oh, I'm losing my voice. I haven't even realized that the whole time. It's it just really kind of goes to show some of these franchises, I don't want to say need to die, but they kind of need to be left left in the past. You know,
exactly.
there, there's some of these franchises you can't do nowadays just because of like, the political atmosphere or some of that kind of stuff. Or just um, feelings about certain groups of people nowadays. I really don't think like necessarily um shit, you can't I don't even think you should really could do G.I. Joe or shit like Captain Planet or maybe even a lot of these like 80s super against all these big corporate, it's very obvious the type of people group of like very bad people type of groups that they are types of shows because
Mhm.
even though I do think they need to bring them back, it's a reflection of the times that they were in. And but like if you try to do it now, you obviously know the type of backlash that a lot of people
And
on certain sites to have.
and also some of those and then also some of those properties that you mentioned, especially those, they just don't have they're just not they don't have a what they're trying to portray is not entirely accurate to what is actually happening and how these corporations, all these like governments and all these things actually work. I mean, I get it. Some of them are for kids, and of course, there are some things you can't explore because it's just how heavy they are. But
Oh.
at the same time, it's like, come on, it's they're just not they need to be sometimes they just need to be told as they are.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like the I think I've said it before. Like, you have some of the cartoons from even the 2000s. I really don't see it much in like modern day cartoons. Maybe I'm just not watching the right modern day cartoons or TV, is that they were really touching upon some of these subjects, very touchy subjects of like, hey, things kind of look idyllic or things kind of look idyllic, but you sometimes it's unfortunately your neighbor doesn't like you because of how you look, but you kind of have to
Hmm.
keep going and you have to prove your neighbor wrong, that
Hmm.
even though I don't look like you or I don't act like you, love like you, all that kind of stuff, we're not different in a way. We have the same blood, or we're not literally the same blood, but it's like we all
We're
have
all human.
we're
Yeah.
literally human. We practice our religions, we might practice differently, but we're not like I'm no lesser than you, you're no lesser than me. And I don't
Mhm.
want you to take this as a personal attack on you. I'm just trying to, you know, you like I can't think of the idiom where you like build a bridge. I'm trying to build a bridge so it's not like we're all like hating on each other,
Mhm.
because I really think, and we've seen it in person, and I think
Mhm.
you've seen it in the past, it is when you get rid of all the type of people that they blame the problems on, you when it's based on religion, physical appearance, all these other things, you start going after your own for microaggressions or,
Mhm.
hey, this guy's sorry. I'm going to keep this in because I think it needs to be said. But, you know, oh, I don't like this guy because he's Irish. I don't like this guy because he's Polish. This is crap that we went through back in the day, like 50,
Mhm.
60 years ago. Our grandparents were children back in the times when like people were attacking basically other people for being from other countries.
Yeah.
Um,
Unfortunate.
it's really the nostalgia is kind of what people are. I think people are so focused on this false nostalgia of what things used to be for them that they used to see, and they were closed off in their little own world. Because it's really what's getting down to the point is like, you know, when something outside of their their little world that they had when they were younger interrupts that, I think they lash out and
Mhm.
they get angry, and that's why we're in a situation where we are right now. And
Yeah.
I, I it sucks that I kind of had to get into this, but I think it's very important that you know the geopolitics of the world affect the real world, affect the movies. Because yes, you can have movies that kind of like give like a cultural backlash or make people feel better about stuff, but it goes both ways, and it's scary. We need to things need to be done, things need to happen. So, you
Mhm.
know,
Yeah,
sorry.
yeah.
Oh,
I was just gonna uh yeah, nostalgia is nostalgia is so much more contagious than many people realize.
yeah,
And
it's
that's the
not.
thing. That's the thing as well.
It's
And sorry, to get back on track and to almost round this off, we don't want to say that like we should not do like rebooting or sequels altogether, period. Because
oh no, yeah.
there are movies like there are movies that definitely do like need the like okay.
The
So
Ghostbuster sequels, those are good. Like Frozen Empire is a little dubious, but
but I was just gonna like
yeah.
instead of rebooting or making sequels to good movies, they really should remake bad movies or movies that simply just did poorly because there are some movies with really intriguing ideas that were just poorly executed. Like
Oh
the
yeah.
clear example, like the example that comes to my mind is I don't know if you guys have ever heard of this B movie called The Giant Claw. It's like
Oh yeah, yeah. It's the
it's
it
a
looks like
B
it
movie,
looks
low,
terrible, but
yeah, like low budget B movie, giant bird attacks city and all that kind of stuff. Like, and I say that because the actors, I don't know if you know this, but the actors were in the dark about, or at least like according to like the main actor who plays the main character, they were all in the dark about how like what the creature looked like until the
I think
premiere
I've
of the movie
I think I've heard that. Yeah.
because the marionette they were using for the giant bird was so poorly made and not all that intimidating. So I'm thinking maybe we should actually do the movie justice by actually making the creature scary and actually make it worthwhile.
I
But
think
then again, I understand why some studios and filmmakers wouldn't want to touch certain projects,
yeah,
especially if they were
preservation, yeah.
massive flops.
I think sometimes, you could also go kind of I can't talk. Go the not James Cameron route, the Peter Jackson route. Go the Peter Jackson route and just have the original not raw files, but if you still have the original reels and everything, just if the actors did their best, just fix up the actual monster. That might be a dumb thing to say, but it's like if we have the technology now and we can fix it, don't use CGI because I've seen people try to put CGI into old black and white movies. They usually, unless they know how to matte everything and make it look like it's like there in the movie, it doesn't work out like that. So,
Yeah, I mean, like, frick, I even like drew up a sort of mock of how, well, I even drew up like a sort of like modern reconstruction, if you will, of like the giant claw. So it's like it definitely can be done with the right like if they under like yeah, it can be done with the right ambition.
I think what would be funny is Huh. I think would be funny. I mean, nobody has to do this, but you know how like in the 60s and 70s when like all those old Godzilla movies are coming out and they had to like put a different monster on the actual poster of the movie because they didn't want to spoil what the actual poster was on or what actual monster looked like. It would be funny to get like all those designs brought to life, but you know, that's just me shooting the shit with that.
Mhm.
So
I mean, it's kind of what happened with the giant claw poster. They barely even showed the head because they were so ashamed of it.
it's that I know exactly what you're talking about. Yeah, it just looks so bad. I you can't even like try to defend it. Like it looks like somebody just took like a freaking like I can't think it's like the monster, not the monster, but the dinosaur claw mouth thing, like wraps and stuff around it, like a bird, all that kind of stuff. It's terrible. It's funny how terrible it is. But you're right. It when you have like some of these B movie stories that
I mean,
really
sorry,
go ahead.
but I was just gonna say this actually happened with Little Shop of Horrors. That
Mhm.
was originally a B movie,
Yeah,
and then
yeah, they did that in the
that
80s.
yeah, it was originally a B movie. Someone saw it. They were like, you know what? I wanna make this. I love this so much. I wanna remake this. I wanna remake this as a
The cult
musical,
classic, you
and it
know?
became a cult classic. Yes.
Yeah,
Mhm.
they could do that. They could totally do that.
Mhm.
Just because it is funny that you know a young Jack Nicholson was in that like that old like black and white Shop of Horrors. That's beside the point. But that you know you could do that. You know we have the technology for like some of these movies that came out 30, 40 years ago. You know, do it in a way that's not just like a jingling keys, bring back old actors, all that kind of crap.
Yeah.
You know, I think that kind
And
of
I
goes back to the nostalgia part, bringing back old actors. But you know,
and
do
I and
do it
I
in a way that's like true to the story, but with the new stuff.
Yeah, and I should mention that I found out about this recently that it was first the B movie Little Shop of Horrors, and then the stage musical, and then the movie musical. That's how it went. Just to clarify.
Eh,
Yeah, it is a little funny. It went from a movie to a musical back to a movie, but that was a musical.
mhm.
I'm pretty sure that they've like done that before, which is you know just funny to me in general that like oh well no Wizard of Oz, Wicked,
Yep. Wizard of Oz. Yep.
The play, and then Wicked the movie. You know, I literally
Hmm.
just said it, and then I just remembered they're making the Wicked for good. It no,
Hmm.
it's just kind of funny because that's another one that's very important to the topic that we're talking about is you know they made Oz the Great and Powerful, Return to Oz, all these movies from like the movie is almost 100 years old. The original Julie Gardner,
No,
Judy
Julie
Garland.
Garland.
Julie Garland. I don't know why I said Gardner. Julie
Judy Garland.
Garland. Yeah,
Judy Garland.
Judy Garland. You know, Wizard of Oz. That's almost 100 years old. Great
Yeah.
movie. It's a wonderful movie, and they have been trying to make it a thing for decades. And
Oh yeah.
sometimes I just think that they just need to let it stay in the, you know,
One of
yeah,
one of
go
the
ahead.
little informations about Wicked for Good is that one of the actors was asked about Dorothy in Wicked for Good, and this is not a spoiler or anything, just letting you all know. But they did ask about Dorothy in the movie, and they decided that they're not gonna show her face. They're just gonna show her from the distance or certain close-ups, but they're not gonna show her Dorothy's face because they want people to they're like, oh, we want to respect Judy Garland. And I give them points for that, but we just got the doll of Dorothy from Wicked for Good. Like, I was literally at Walmart the other day and I saw the Wicked for Good dolls
Yeah,
of
that's that.
one of them was Dorothy. And I'm
And
sitting there like,
also
It's definitely a little weird.
Dorothy is what I
and
want.
also And also the other thing as well is that I think like there's also like the book version.
Yeah,
So it's like I don't see why not have a different Dorothy.
Yeah,
exactly.
but I do like the thought of like paying respects to the actress
Yeah,
who
true.
played
Yeah.
the original character back in the 40s,
39,
30s,
39,
back in the
30.
third, back in the 30s. It's like because she is a timeless character. A lot of people love like her version of Dorothy.
Mhm.
So, I appreciate that the movie does a little bit of respect to to the story, to the character, the actress. I do think it's kind of funny though. Slight
Mhm.
tangent when people kind of get a little mad that like, oh, you're spoiling the movie by like saying which characters turn into what. This is a prequel to Wizard of Oz, guys. Like, are
I'm
we
like,
real?
or it's more so like a as I've been thinking about it, this is kind of like the musical but with better effects
Yeah,
or
it's
with
like
movie effects.
story wise, it is a prequel to Wizard of Oz. So it's
Yeah.
like if you know, like, if you've seen the musical or if you've read the book,
Or
you know,
I think the book is actually like different. A little like
there's always going to be changes.
yeah,
Because
true,
it
yeah.
is funny to have like, oh, why are you showing me this character being turned into a man that's made of tin? Or why is this character turning into a scarecrow? It's like, did we watch the same like movie from the 40s, guys? It's like, although it does kind of a little funny to kind of reframe this movie because like John, you said that they show
Mhm.
that that Dorothy is in the movie.
Yeah.
How long from the end of the movie in Wicked for Good is like when Alphaba like definitively becomes the Wicked Witch? Like how long is it from like the end of that to like when Dorothy shows up? I don't know how
I
long it
think they
is. Is
said
it
10 years. I
10
think they
years?
said 10
Okay.
years between in that timeline of the story. It was 10 years between when Elphaba left Emerald City and went to go
All
do
right.
her.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
So it's kind of funny. Um,
Yeah. And just to kind of round off my point that I said like years ago about like rebooting and sequels and all that, it's like if it's already good, just don't touch it.
yeah,
exactly.
just do a throwback
Exactly.
theaters type thing. Just bring it back in like a
Yeah,
throwback theater.
exactly. Do what like Fathom does. Is they do when they do like throwback stuff.
Yeah, or just like another thing, bring it back to just like have it on TV for like several hours. Or to play
Mhm.
it on TV. You don't need to make a new version of it or like whatever streaming platform.
Mhm.
Um, I just realized we're only a minute over time, but it's
Mhm.
I mean we kind of got into the thing, and I'm sorry if I got a little carried away, but I think it really kind of needs to be said how much AI has overstepped its welcome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's overstepped its welcome in cinema, and it's overstepped its welcome in legislation. And it needs to stop. It just needs to stop totally.
Yeah.
Um,
Mhm.